Hello, in this video we're considering the poem Good Friday by Edwin Morgan. Before we start, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so by hitting the subscribe button below. I've provided a link to the poem which you'll find below. The poem's narrator recounts what is likely a true story. On Good Friday, an important day in the Christian calendar, a drunken man boards the bus the narrator is on. Uninvited, the drunk flops in the seat beside him and strikes a conversation with the speaker. In Scotland, where the poem is set, Good Friday is traditionally commemorated by a holiday. The drunk man, we hear, has been given the day off work. He's making the most of his day off and has been drinking, presumably well before 3 p.m. when he boards the bus. We discover he is a father who left his home to buy Easter eggs for his children, but we know that he has been waylaid and has had a wee drink, presumably in a pub or bar. He is aware that Good Friday is a special day, but really doesn't know why. He asks the narrator to explain why it is. I don't know what today's in aid of, whether Christ was crucified or was he rose for the dead like? See what I mean? The narrator explains, and although we are not told what this explanation is, it seems to satisfy the man. Aye, well, there ye are. The poet uses phonetic spellings so the reader can hear the man's accent, and also uses dialect words, biddy, we and canny locate the poem in Scotland. And at this point I must apologise to any of our Scottish viewers for my terrible Scottish accent. The mood of this poem is generally humorous and there are many comic moments. For example, the description of the man lunging for the stair and then walking away from the bus on nearly steady legs is comical. The poet also uses repetition to comic effect. The man often repeats himself. I don't say it's right. I'm no saying it's right, you understand, and you see today, take today, and you see today, take today. The several dashes and thoughts that trail off reveal the man is drunk. He often repeats himself and reveals he is unclear in his thinking. The poet uses irony for comic purpose. I'm no boring you, eh? The drunken man uses generalisations, saying all working men have nae education and is biddy ignorant. But the man is also criticising himself and putting it down to poor education. Also, Bath Street in Glasgow is known for its many pubs and bars. The poet mentions it to indicate where the story takes place, but also wryly to suggest that the man will continue to drink and, like a bath, immerse himself not in water, the redemption of baptism, but in alcohol. Although the poet uses humour and describes the man as comical, he does not judge him. We are told the man works, and we assume by his accent, grammar and dialect that he is a blue-collar worker, a working class man. This holiday may be one of the few days he enjoys in the year. Also, the question he asks about Good Friday is a perfectly reasonable one. Even people brought up in the Christian faith may not know entirely about the importance of its meaning. Incidentally, the man's response "Aye, well, there ye are," suggests the narrator gave an answer that the man thought was quite deep, clear and clever. Like many of Edwin Morgan's other poems, Good Friday is open to several interpretations. The poet paints the scene lightly, enabling us as readers to bring our own interpretations to it. Although we are able to fill in the details ourselves, in the poem, religion is never far away. The Bible story of Jesus' death, as told by Matthew, says, "From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice and gave up his spirit." The 9th hour is 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We are told the drunken man boarded the bus at 3 p.m. In the Bible, this is the time Christ died. In the Bible, after Christ's death, the darkness lifted. In the poem, we are told the bus comes out into the sun at the exact same time as in the Bible story. Christians believe that Christ's death has the power to save everybody from their sins, from all the wrong things they have done in life. Those who believe in Jesus and put their faith in him are accepted by God and their sins are forgiven. Throughout the poem there is a religious undercurrent, the title Good Friday being a strong marker for this. The man says Christ twice. The first time he uses it to say his name, Christ being another name for Jesus. The second time the man uses it as an expletive, a swear word. Perhaps the poet is making the point that Christ is part of the fabric of our society. His name is used as a swear word by many who are not actively religious and perhaps do not give it a second thought. Yet many people will find its use as a swear word offensive. I think to interpret this poem, we have to ask ourselves several questions. Why does the man start talking to the narrator? He deliberately chooses to flop beside him. Does drink make him chatty, or does it reveal an underlying loneliness? He says he has children, but it is unclear if they live with him. Why does he need to explain that he has been drinking? Does he feel guilty that he has? Does he feel guilty perhaps that he is letting others down, especially his children? Why does he need to tell the narrator he's going to buy Easter eggs? Is it a way of saying that he is a responsible person and is capable of doing good things? Why does he stress his belief that working people are ignorant and uneducated? Is he blaming his ignorance on his education, lack of religious upbringing, or perhaps the church's failure to explain to ordinary people the significance of Easter? Perhaps he feels a need to speak to somebody so he can figure out these big questions in his mind and begin to address them. The man's talk has a confessional tone. He indicates he should have been doing something good, buying Easter eggs for his children, but was tempted to do something selfish, drinking until he is drunk. Throughout the poem, we do not hear the narrator's responses to the drunk's questions. He almost serves as someone the drunken man needs to speak to figure things through and confess his weaknesses and failings as a father. The poem is written in the first person and uses the present tense. This makes the narrator's experiences immediate As the scene unfolds, we share his experiences. Through this technique, we are also sat on the bus, overhearing this conversation, or at least half of the conversation. Regarding the poem's structure, the speaker's encounter with the drunken man is bookended by two changes. The first is the drunken man's arrival, announced by the bus lurching round into the sun. The second is the bus braking violently before the drunken man leaves the bus. The conversation is sandwiched between these two events. The jolt the drunken man experiences may be a jolt to his senses, a realisation of his situation in life, drunkenness and letting his children down. Perhaps it is a revelation, an epiphany, a life-changing moment, a sudden realisation of one's circumstance that alters your life. The shape of the last four lines is equally interesting. Why does Morgan set out those last four lines as though they are steps? Perhaps the poet arranges the last four lines so they resemble steps, to resemble the steps of the bus he is stepping out from. Or by breaking these words into steps, perhaps the poet is suggesting that if the man has decided to alter his lifestyle, change will take time, one step at a time. Yet nearly steady suggests it is uncertain whether the man will be successful in his resolution to change for the better. One interpretation may be that the narrator's explanation of the meaning of Good Friday has made little impression on the man. Perhaps the title Good Friday simply means the man is having a good time on his day off. Once he leaves the bus, he will just find another bar and continue his drinking. This interpretation, however, can be countered by the narrator's confidence that the man will get the Easter eggs. Into the sun for his Easter eggs. This does not seem to be said ironically, and the reader can believe he will buy the eggs. If we support this interpretation, then the poem is perhaps saying that Good Friday is less about its meaning and more about turning its meaning into action. Committing concrete good acts to others would include buying the Easter eggs for the children and being kind and patient to drunken passengers when they board the bus and start talking to you. Perhaps the poem is saying that Good Friday is better commemorated by making connections with others and being kind to one another. The poet cleverly does not share with us the meaning of Good Friday. He makes the reader answer that question. He asks them to examine their own knowledge of Good Friday and its relevance of this day in their lives. It makes us ask ourselves, is Easter just a holiday or much more? To fully appreciate this poem, I recommend that you read it several times over, and yes, I'm sure you're going to do a far better Scottish accent than me. But again, by reading it to yourselves, you'll see how the poet uses phonetic spellings to give the impression of the Scottish accent, and also incorporates Scottish dialect to give the poem more authenticity. Here are some questions to consider once you've read the poem. Question 1. What is Morgan the poet saying about Easter? Question 2. How does the poet make the drunken man comical and sympathetic? 3. What techniques does the poet use so we know the story is set in Glasgow? I hope you enjoyed this poem and found my analysis useful. If so, please don't forget to subscribe. Also, hit the like button and ring the bell. If you haven't done so already, please check out our other analysis of Winter by Edwin Morgan and also the poem Brooklyn Cop by Norman McCaig. We've also created a playlist of many other poems that we've analysed, so don't forget to check those out too. Until next time, from Carol and me, write well.